right? Like that's what I can guarantee, because stuff happens on the day of the event. There's so many things that we deal with. But the fact that, like, you're hiring a professional and leaving it in their hands to handle the last minute stuff is something that you have to have faith on. So that's basically, I would say that everyone has to be very aware when hiring wedding planners.
In this episode of Wedding Checklist Now, I sit down with Neha Chopra. She is a wedding planner who specializes in South Asian weddings in the Greater Toronto Area. But regardless of where you are in the world, you're not going to want to miss this episode if you are planning a wedding coming up. She's going to be dropping some cold, hard truths and facts to think about when planning a wedding in the post-pandemic world. In fact, she was even recently featured on the CBC here in Canada. By the way, if you and we have never met before, my name is Durgi Spade, aka the Magic MC. That's because I'm a wedding magician and a wedding MC. And in this series of videos called Wedding Checklist Now, we bring to you tips and tricks and even wedding checklists for you to use on while planning your big wedding day. I can't wait for you to hear what Neha has to say right after this.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And I have the absolute pleasure to be your host this evening.
Hi Neha, how are you?
I'm good, Sergey. How are you?
I am doing just well. Great to see you again. I feel like we haven't been able to, really connect because of the pandemic, and now things are starting to open up again. So thank you so much for taking time to, have a quick conversation with me today.
Yeah, no problem. I can't wait for this. It's finally a great opportunity to get in front of the camera, be able to dress up, come out. So I couldn't have missed that for anything.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful and, just so happy to have you here. Now, Neha, if there's people watching that have never seen you before, are not familiar with your name or brand, can you just give us a quick introduction of what you do, who you are?
Yeah, for sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Neha Chopra. I am the owner and director of SAWC Planners, SAWC Planners. It stands for South Asian Wedding Center. So we primarily do South Asian and South Asian fusion weddings. We're based out in Toronto, Ontario, and I've been planning events for over 13 years. I have a team of planners, so we were about 8 in total at the moment. And we usually take from month of coordination to partial planning to full planning, and we absolutely enjoy what we do. So here we are.
Awesome. And so that's super helpful. But Neha, I feel like you're not even giving yourself all the credit that you deserve, because I think you do even more than that, right? And tell me if I'm wrong, but don't you have another wedding related business as well?
Yes, I do. I always tend to forget that, and for some reason it gets in the side burner, and then in the middle of our conversation, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, I have to talk about Bling and Bells. So yes, I do have another company called Bling and Bells. It is an e-commerce website. And it's very correlated to my wedding planning business. It's really to help our couples make their planning process a little bit easier with the wedding accessories, the little details that they require on the day of their ceremony or the reception. It's meant to really support our Indian economy as well, because I'm born and brought up in India. I've seen how things are there, how poverty is. And I'm just blessed to have my sister in India that has helped me source a lot of products from there. So we do like little details, like an arti pali for an Indian ceremony, or even like nice decorative hearts to put on people, some garlands. So I typically in my trunk have backup for everything that a couple would really need, just in case, because I've been in situations where the jamalas didn't arrive, or if they arrived, the roses were dead and stuff like that. So I always like to be prepared as a planner and have all of that stuff. So yes, I do have another business, and that's Bling and Bells.
I'm glad you were able to share that. I didn't even realize you had someone helping you. That's awesome. A family member, your sister in India, kind of helping you on the other side of things. So that's really cool. And so let me ask you, you're obviously very heavily involved in the wedding business in the GTA, in the Greater Toronto Area, specifically when it comes to, you found your niche, which is South Asian weddings. That's what the company name's named after. How does someone like you get started in such, in wedding planning, and specifically a very specific niche?
So it might sound like a cliche because a lot of people probably said that, but I think my wedding was something that really gave me that push to kind of even think about a career in event planning, because I got married about 13 years ago, and that's when it really started. I started doing my research. I started creating scrapbooks of different things that I was researching with vendors. And it came to a point where I wanted to help others, but there was no term as a wedding planner during that time, right? Or even if it was basically encompassed with everything else. Like you would give the money to a person and they would plan everything, but they were not called a wedding or an event planner. So that's where when I saw, with my own wedding, how badly I needed one on the day of. Like, just to give you an instance, our horse for my husband arrived, and forget the being dressed horse, it was a horse, no saddle whatsoever. So you can imagine how hard it would have been for him. And to this date, every time we talk about our wedding, that's the first thing that comes up. Oh, remember I sat on a horse without a saddle for you? Like, that's like a line kind of thing. It just came to a point where, like, there was nobody checking anything for our entrances. I wasn't sure when I should be walking down. Like, there's so many things that I felt like had a gap. And I was like, do I want to put my family through all of this? Maybe I should have had someone that was there to assist me. So I went on a hunt. I started doing my research. I actually posted an ad on Kijiji just asking everyone, hey, is anyone looking for advice? I just had my wedding, and I had a South Asian wedding in Toronto. If you guys want to get any, insight, I would love to provide it to you for free. Call me, let's chat. I just wanted to see how it is out there. And I was lucky enough for a company to actually contact me, and it was a wedding planning company, and they said, we need to venture into South Asian market. Would you be interested to take over? And I was like, wow, like there is such a thing as a wedding planner for South Asian industry. So I said, yeah, I'd love to explore. Just a long story short, 4 years I worked for them. And then right after that, I just figured, I had my second daughter at that point, so I do have 3 kids. With my second daughter, I just decided that, I'll quit my 9 to 5 full time. I was a marketing manager at Zurich Insurance, and I just kind of quit that. And I bought a studio space because I never wanted to work from home. And we basically started operating from there. And from that point on, here I am today, where I believe one of the things that I'm really proud of over the 13 years is a service that was considered a luxury has now become a necessity, which I think is amazing. Like, wedding planners are definitely one of the things that people are looking at hiring now. It's come to a point where we are both, like, between the couple and ourselves, we try to find the right fit for the two of us. So yeah, blessed for that. And here we are 13 years away.
That's super interesting, and 13 years is a long time. It feels like, it's a long time, and it's not. Like, to me, it's absurd. It sounds so crazy that only 13 years ago, at your wedding, the horse showed up and no one had thought about the saddle. You know what I mean? Like, I find that kind of funny. And it, 13 years ago was a long time ago, but again, I can't imagine, only 13 years ago how many things have changed, and you've experienced a lot of that over this time. Is there like one thing you can think of that's like the biggest change from when you first got married to today? I know you talked about like wedding planners were once considered luxury and now it's almost like an essential service, but what else? Is there another big change that's an obvious one for you?
I think from a planner's perspective, one thing that I would say I've seen that as a change is in terms of the shift in the wedding industry as well. Like, I feel like I got married at a temple, for example, 13 years ago, right? My decor was very minimalistic. It was more focused on the couple itself, but the weddings that we're doing nowadays are so elaborate, right? Like, I mean, we've had couples that have wanted to transform the rooms into being like in a different country altogether. We've even done photo shoots where We've tried to bring Rome or Paris to them. So the scope of the weddings have really increased a lot more. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the C word very soon, but whenever that comes about, that has also put a lot of things into perspective over 2 years, right? Like, I mean, focusing on ourselves, bringing back to our families and like the people that matter the most. So I would say, like, in terms of the biggest shift, I think that the scope of the weddings have changed, and hence the need for planners have increased a lot more too, right? Like, people have started valuing the fact that they want their families to enjoy as much as they do, and of course they deserve, because they're friendships to stay as much as the couple has. So I feel like that whole shift from that point to this point is a big change.
I think that's a really important point you bring up. Allowing your family to enjoy the wedding the way that they should, right? Like, as guests. And so when you hire someone like a planner or even an MC, what I do, that takes away a job from, you know, maybe someone that would have been assigned to do that at the wedding if you didn't hire a professional. And the problem is, if that person's never, you know, planned a wedding before, if they've never MC'd a wedding before, like, they're essentially practicing at your wedding, right? And I think just, you know, what you said about allowing your guests to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the evening as opposed to going to work, I think that's a big one as well. You know, a follow-up question to that, very similar to what I asked you, you know, big changes you've seen over the last 13 years. What about any changes you've noticed between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic weddings? I hate using that word now, but, you know, we've here in Ontario, we've just opened up, or are opening up this week, what we're calling stage 3. And so, and I know that you've already started doing weddings, right? This year, like over the last few weeks. So were there any obvious changes you've noticed to, you know, maybe something that didn't exist 2 years ago?
So that's a really good question, but I would tell you the biggest change that we're all experiencing is what we're doing at the moment. They're the virtual consultations. I guess that's where it all began, right? Like, I had a studio space, and I always thought that in-person meetings were so essential to be able to connect with someone, to be able to show them a TV here, like, you know, we're doing a timeline meeting, showing them actual albums of here's a photographer, this and that. So virtual consultations, I think, is one of the biggest things that has happened. Now, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, we as planners have to do so much more post-pandemic just to make sure that the safety of guests is there. So, like, even having a nice sanitizing station, which is still decorative. And I remember our first wedding, which was July 12th of last year, when that was like our first pandemic wedding. And it started with 300 people, came down to 50 people in the bride's backyard. We had to come up with really cute ideas of how do we still not say the C word, but still be able to tell people to be careful, because nobody wanted to hear it. Like, I remember I sent the welcome sign to the bride and groom saying, instead of saying welcome to our new beginning, can we say welcome to our COVID-free and like socially friendly wedding or something like that? So we, like, you know, people still knew that please be socially distant, because we were right in the pandemic during July of last year, right? So just coming up with like a lot of innovative ideas to still make the guests comfortable but safe at the same time. And of course, like, buffets was a big thing, even till date. Like, you know, people cannot wrap their heads around, hey, you're going to a South Asian wedding and you're going to give us boxed food and we have to eat in our car. Like, so many different ways that we had to come up with. So instead of boxed food, we actually started creating thalis for people, like for South Asian weddings, where everything was there. You just exactly how you go to a restaurant, you'll have that. And then you'll leave with it. So, I mean, everyone started adapting to it quite a bit. And I think everyone was really more about being safe than anything else. So we really had to put that into perspective too. But I think those were probably the biggest things that we had to kind of shift.
That's a lot of changes you've described. There are things we didn't have to think about a year ago. So thanks for sharing that. And, you know, let's continue down that path. So what advice do you have for a South Asian couple getting married in 2021?
So I think 2021, and we were just discussing this with Durgi as well in regards to how last minute everything has been, right? Like all of a sudden things have opened up and people are like, let's get married and start our lives. I've also had people from last year that just did their ceremony and wanted to move their reception. So now they're calling back and saying, hey, indoor dining is allowed. Can we just have our reception? But their reception is like a month away. So from how like last year we had like a long time to plan, and typically like our planning is at least 12 to 18 months. In a normal world, we used to get 12 to 18 months to plan. Now I'm getting a month to 2 weeks. Like today I got a call for August 2nd wedding. I mean, this is like what, 14 days? And they were saying that we have the photographer, we have the decor, but we don't have a venue and we don't have anything else. I'm like, well, you have the simplest things. We still need to figure out where it's happening. So yeah, so I mean that whole like, you know, last minute shift. So an advice, I guess, bringing it all back down is I think everyone really has to focus on the marriage at this point, and that's what COVID really taught us. Marriage, not just between the two of you, but between the families as well. We've had people that literally went from 500 to 100 to 11 people, right? And we like as individuals, I guess we have to have a big mind shift in terms of what we were envisioning before to what it is now, and focusing on us, like ourselves, other than anybody else, right? So that's one thing. Like a lot of times couples are asking me, how do we utilize all these photo video hours that we have with the team? Because I mean, as industry, we're not able to refund the deposits, obviously, right? Because we have to sustain ourselves. And I tell the couples, I'm like, focus on yourself. Why don't you do like a crazy photo shoot? I mean, the two of you go to Tobermory, you can go to Banff, like do something nice for the two of you, as opposed to everyone else. And I think, yeah, that's my one piece of advice: just focus on yourself, focus on what matters the most, and that's you.
Amazing. I love that. Focus on the wedding, focus on yourselves, really. How does someone like you go from planning weddings from 12 to 18 months to like get ready for a wedding, which is, like you just said, is what you used to do, and shift to planning weddings in 2 weeks?
So I think laying out the expectations from the beginning is really, really important when something like this happens, right? So like letting them know that, hey, we're here to support you, but you got to understand that we're all humans. We're not machines. You're not pressing a button and stuff's happening. So we have to have that understanding that we will do everything in our power to make this as seamless as possible. And we understand this is your wedding. We can't say, sorry, it wouldn't happen again, right? Like hopefully we all wish there was no again, and we have to get it right the first time. But I think one thing that has really happened is the experience and the vendor connections that I've had. I'm so blessed and so thankful that, like, you know, I have, whereas, well, if people have to wait for 2-3 days to get a response from venue, I actually have cell phone numbers of the sales representatives. I can literally call them and be like, could you tell me the availability? So it's helped in bringing that time a lot less. If people are hiring for that 2 weeks, and we do tell them that you got to go with our judgment at this time, and you have to trust us as professionals, because we don't have the time to do the research. I can give you 3 vendors and then you look them up, then you get back to me in 3 days. There's no time for that. In the 2 weeks, we literally lay out what is remaining, and we go with the judgment and the trust that you should have in a planner, because you've hired us for that very reason.
Yeah, it's such a difficult spot to be in for everybody, right? So yeah, I get it. It's just kind of, okay, we've got 2 weeks, trust the planner. And you know, I'm not a planner, but maybe if I was one, I'd be thinking, you know, I've been doing this for a decade. I know the best, you know, the flower person, the best DJ, whatever, for maybe your specific requirements, and trust that, you know, trust my expertise. So that's interesting. And, you know, another thing you had mentioned was to save time because of these limited, you know, 2 week, 3 week planning, the time that you have. One of the things you've done is virtual appointments, or virtual, what did you call it?
Virtual consultations, right?
Consultations, right? Yeah. So let me just dive a little deeper there. So how is that going, virtual consultations? And have you found, are they better, worse, or the same as in-person consultations? I know you mentioned that, now, am I right? Like you closed your physical studio, is that correct? And so now you're doing them all virtually. And so maybe share with me, how are they different? What's better and worse? And do you plan to one day go back into the office, or for Saucy, will it be always virtual going forward?
So I'll be honest, I'm not the best at virtual consultations. I mean, I love it. So far, it's working out well because I do have an infant, so it's kind of helped out. But my focus, my mind, and I'm looking for a studio space. So to answer that question, like I'm probably going for viewings tomorrow. I just can't operate from home or do this like that. It's just, when you're in the atmosphere, when you are in that frame of mind where you have your desk, you have your personal space, and you're focused on a certain thing, rather than me worrying about, oh, what should I make for dinner? Should I just go down and check up on the kids? Like that is really hard to do. So right now I do have a co-working space that I've invested in. So that's where I would do my consultations still. I do feel the in-person consults coming back. Actually, I was just at a design meeting yesterday, so I think it is coming back. But the virtual consults, I mean, I just have to say that I'm thankful for them at this point, because I don't know what we would have done if that wouldn't have been there, right? So for the time of the pandemic, they were great, and everybody adapted to them really well. But I think we need the normal to be back. Like this has been way too long, and I would really want to be able to see my couple in person and be able to like connect with them a lot better as opposed to this.
Got it. No, that totally makes sense to me, and I'm actually excited that you're planning to come back, and do them in person. I think there's some value there that maybe it's a little bit hard to deliver over a virtual call. Let me ask you a tough question. I think it's not a tough question. It's maybe a little bit. It's a little harder than the other questions we've been talking about so far. So, let's imagine I'm a groom or soon to be groom, and I'm like, I was planning a wedding for 200 people or 300 people before the pandemic, and now with all these rules, like I can only have 40 people at my wedding. Why do I need to hire a wedding planner if I'm just gonna have, a 40-person event? What do you say to someone like that?
And that's an excellent question. I probably have answered this quite a few times because that's something that's really happened. It's funny enough because I understand the mindset. However, I feel like as coming from the industry and seeing it on this side of things, and that's how I really give them the advice and the knowledge as well. Even if you're having a 40 people wedding, the atmosphere is very different now. Like the environment that we're in is very different. So even if for 40 people, you might want to put a lot more detail into the event because now you're not having 500 people. So for example, like, buffets are something that's not allowed as well. And as a professional, like we are on top of what the restrictions are, what we can do, what we can't do. And again, like time is money for you. So even if you're planning a 40 people wedding, the likelihood of you having a year to plan a 40 people wedding is very slim. You probably have 2 months or 3 months because you're really focusing on the immediate, right? And still trying to make it an experience for them is what it really counts, right? Like we've done even 10 people, not even 40. Even with 10 people, I will tell you, it was live stream is the biggest thing. And I think I forgot to touch base on that before with the whole post and pre-pandemic, because people are still doing a live stream where there is all the people that weren't able to, all the guests that weren't able to join are still there. So, and I'm not sure if you've seen the quality, but it actually feels like you are at the ceremony. So even with 10 or 11 people, I'm still doing my announcements. The bride is coming in, the groom's coming in, and literally there's just 5 or 6 people that are sitting inside the venue. I just did one at Globe and Mail Center, beautiful wedding. And we had, I think we had about 350 people on live stream. And we had 11 people in the room.
Okay.
So that's,
So help me out because, I haven't yet been to a wedding where it was I've been to one, but like help me really understand, how does the live streaming work? Like, do you does a company need to be hired to do that? Can I just take out my phone and go to Facebook Live and hit play? Will that work? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, so no, live stream is really, there is a link that's sent to your entire invitees or the guests that you wanted to have there. Paperless Post has now designed special, invitations where you can put the live stream link. So an external company is hired where it's a manned camera, it's a manned video camera. So when the barat is starting, the camera is on the groom, the millie, that whole process of the beginning. They're there. So it's not easy. And I've got this question asked from a lot of couples as well. Can we not just set up a Zoom call with our family and can put that up? And I told them, I said, again, you're putting responsibility on someone that should be enjoying the wedding, than having a laptop guarding it, trying to make sure they're moving it around and stuff like that. Here, the quality is impeccable. Like, I can't even tell you how beautiful it is. Just the fact to have someone there manned and being able to move the camera when important things are happening, rather than focusing on people eating or the setup still happening, they're there as professional, streaming the entire event. And there've been times where our audience that are sitting on the other side are actually dressed up and they are a part of the wedding, so they feel even more involved, right? So so it's been a lot different in that regard.
Yeah, and I had a feeling you were going to say that because I know there's so much that could be done with virtual. The one wedding I went to, it was live stream, but it was more of an afterthought, and they had someone that had connected a computer and stuff. But it wasn't like a manned camera, and the camera that was being used was like a regular webcam. And we know those webcams are good for maybe your work meeting, but they're not good for high quality HD footage to be sent through for a wedding, which is the way I think it should be, right? The one that I saw, they had one microphone kind of sitting on the ground somewhere, and half the people on the live stream couldn't hear what was going on, and that's frustrating. So I'm glad that you kind of went into detail on just how great it can be if you have someone professional managing that side of things. So let's say I buy everything you've said, and I say, you know what, Neha, it was really, really nice, or I totally understand what you've said. Maybe I've never met you before, but I'm following and I believe you. And so now I'm gonna go ahead and listen to Neha Chopra from Saucy Planners, and because of her, I'm gonna hire a wedding planner. What are the things what is maybe one thing I should look out for when hiring this wedding planner?
And that's for everyone out there. I'm going to circle back into a couple of things that I talked about. I think one of the biggest things that everyone should be aware of is the expectations. Wedding planners are not a tangible product, right? We sell an experience. We're selling a service. You will only know how a wedding planner is once you hire one. So that's why we emphasize so much to our couples to please take the time and write Google reviews. And we've just been blessed. Every couple that we've had has taken the time to not just give us 5 stars or just say the service was great. They actually went in detail. And I don't think you would remember this, but today, or actually yesterday, marks our first wedding together. Pooja and Chirag's wedding was yesterday, 3 years ago, and I think that's where we had met. And you wouldn't believe, Pooja yesterday sent me a message thanking me. This is 3 years after, right? Thanking me for the service that she had received. And she said that she still thinks of me. And that to me was the biggest thing ever, right? So I'm look at this, how coincidental this is that I'm meeting with Durgi a day later, and you just sent me this message. And it's come such a long way, right? So relationships to me matter so much that I think there's nothing beyond that. So coming back to the point, laying out the expectations from the beginning, what is our role as a planner and what is your role as a client, I think is really, really important. A lot of times I see stuff on the web saying, hire a planner and you don't have to do anything. That is really not true. not in Toronto at all. It's your wedding. We're here to assist you as planners, but at the end of the day, signing the contracts, making sure that we have everything intact, we work together, right? You just don't give your entire wedding in my hands. We assist you to bring your vision together, but it's a mutual process basically that we have to go through. So I think that's my biggest, and I definitely, even if I've been in the industry for 13 years, every single couple that comes on board, be it month of coordination, full planning or partial, I always tell them, I cannot guarantee that you would have a perfect wedding. I cannot, because we're all humans, right? We're not machines. What I can guarantee is how seamless I will make anything that happens behind the scenes, right? Like that's what I can guarantee, because stuff happens on the day of the event. There's so many things that we deal with. But the fact that you're hiring a professional and leaving it in their hands to handle the last minute stuff is something that you have to have faith on. So that's basically, I would say that everyone has to be very aware when hiring wedding planners.
Yeah, and one way that I like to think about it sometimes is, because you're right, we are all human, and as a planner, you can't promise it's going to go flawlessly, and you can't it's not like you said, it's not that they hire a planner and then that's it. They don't have to do anything else for the rest. So it's not that a planner doesn't bring you, tell me if you agree or disagree, to the 100% mark, but they might bring you to the 70% mark to really help push it forward. But you still got to do some of it. You still got to pull your own weight to some extent, but you really help them get to that 100% mark. So that kind of resonated with me a little bit. You've been in business for 13 years, Neha. Let me ask you, what is maybe one of the craziest things that you remember that's happened to you while you were out in the field?
Am I only allowed one? Well, I think
you can say as many as you want. I asked for one good one, but yeah, if you've got a couple, I'd love to hear it.
No, it's like every wedding thing brings a memory. I have to say that. Every single wedding brings a memory. Every single wedding brings a lesson, right? Like again, this is one of the things that I tell every couple of mine, that I critique a wedding so much, I will find a fault into it no matter what, right? Like I'll really, because that's the thing that I like to look at a wedding and be like, okay, what is something different that could be done? Now, as professionals, we can see that side of things. The client cannot see it, because for them, it's no different. But I remember my very first wedding that I did with that company, very first wedding. It wasn't a South Asian wedding, because I was assisting them for another wedding, and it was at the doctor's house. At the Old Mill in Toronto. And I remember we left, and I got a call from the captain saying that the bride and groom were dancing on the stage, and I guess they really got hammered, and it went to the extent that they both knocked each other out. And at the end of the wedding, they were both taken into wheelchairs to the hospital. And literally the dance floor was, it's not the sight that anybody wants to see, but it was just one of those things that I remember from my very first wedding. And it was 12 o'clock at night, and I sat up and I'm like, Neha, do you really want to do this? Like, is this where you really want to be? So that kind of shook me a little bit. And from that point on, every wedding that we've seen, like I remember it being so hot that the cake started to sink in, and it was one of those things where I'm deciding, should I keep this cake, should I let it go? So those decisions, and people having problems with, I'd given a certain vendor time for the morning, but they thought it was 7 p.m. instead of a.m. and those kind of things that we work with and trying to, so there's way too many things that I can probably tell you that we've been through. But again, bringing it back to the fact that we're all humans here, we're all trying to make it work. Nobody wants to make any mistakes on purpose, right? We all want to sustain a business. I guess it's really where it comes down to the vendor connections that I had. I remember this one wedding of mine where the flooring guy did not show up at all, where the vinyl flooring that we do on the floor. And I called my contact, and I cannot forget that day. I called my contact, and it was literally an hour before the guests were about to arrive. And this vendor of mine showed up with 6 people, and I had a floor before the people walked in. I will not forget that day. And I give so much, I'm just so thankful to the kind of vendor connections that I've developed over the years. And the same thing, it comes down to you, Durgi, as well, right? Like, I mean, every time there's an MC opportunity, I'm just like, do you really want to give it an experience and have an illusionist, a magician with it, because that's entertainment in itself. And see, if we have good vendors throughout the event, it only makes us look good as planners as well, because we put a whole team together. And as a wedding planner, I see the importance of a wedding MC like anything. Again, I think it's very hand in hand to how your service has also become a necessity now from a luxury, right? Like, people used to be like, oh, we can have our family do emceeing. And now, like, I've seen behind the scenes, I literally had one of a groom's brother come up to me saying that he's had way too many drinks and he doesn't think that he'd be able to do anything for emceeing. So in the moment, trying to figure out who should I find to replace this was really hard, right? And I don't blame him. It's his brother's wedding. He wants to have fun, rather than sweating over, like, what we should be saying and trying to get the crowd involved, right? So I think that's where it really comes down to, and I feel like our service is super important.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's funny you say that about MCs, because I was thinking that earlier when you mentioned how with planners, over, let's say, the last 13 years since you've been in business, it's really gone from a luxury to like a necessity. And I was thinking, how coincidental, because I feel like for wedding MCs, it's slowly happening. I don't think it's there yet completely, at least the public perception. And I didn't want to bring it up because, this is about you, not about me. But since you brought it up, with the MCs, I think that's true as well, where, I think right now, like, the perception isn't like we have to have an MC until you yourself go to a wedding with a really good MC. And then you realize, okay, I understand, why that's one's needed. And maybe that's the same thing that's happened with planners, where when you go to a wedding with a really good planner and things are just so smooth, you say, it clicks. I understand why I need one now. So, my personal goal, I'll share some insights with you, is to elevate the industry as it comes to requirements around MCs, and making MCs just a little bit more of an item that couples know exists. There's couples out there that don't even exist, like professional MCs exist, and when couples go to hire, they think about I need a DJ. That's a necessity, but an MC doesn't come to mind. So if we all collectively continue doing a great job, I think the MC industry could rise just as well as the wedding planner industry rose over the last 15 years. So cool. That's super cool for you to make that connection, and thanks for sharing. Let me ask you this. The reason why I created this segment or the show was to help couples who are now starting their wedding planning. And I called it Wedding Checklist Now, so we can provide tips, tricks, checklists right now to couples getting married. So let me ask you, if there's a couple that is interviewing wedding planners right now, what are maybe 2 or 3 questions they should be asking every planner they interview?
So one of the biggest things, there's a lot of planners out there now. Like, it's so hard to keep a track of, because I think during COVID, people wanted to try to find a different thing to do, and they started looking into different opportunities. I think one of the biggest things that you should definitely look for in a planner, number 1, is references and Google reviews. Before you even contact a planner, I would highly recommend to please take a look at the Google reviews. They are reflective of the work that the planner is really capable of. Even in our first meeting, like when we do our discovery call with the couple, in my consult form on the website, it really states, what are you looking for in a planner? right? I want to hear from our couples, what are the 3 things that they are looking for in the planner, and how would you describe your dream wedding? Those are the 2 questions that I ask. And the main reason for that is to find that true fit between what we provide as planners and what you as a couple has for a vision, right? So I think it's very important for you to also be transparent when you're looking for a planner. And we are trying to sell ourselves, actually. Our service is us. So if you're able to connect with us as a personality, as a human being, then we are the right fit, right? Also, like some of the questions that I would definitely ask is if the planner has experience with that venue, especially if you have a shorter time frame to plan. It's a lot easier to be able to work with a planner that already has the experience with that venue. I'll give you an instance. I got a contact for another couple that just contacted me last week for a wedding on July 24th. So July 24th is really 10 days away. And when I was contacted, I had never done a wedding there. But COVID brought our planners community so close that I was able to find them a planner that actually did a wedding at their venue. And I asked her if she could take over this wedding. And she totally said, yeah, no problem. So that was because I looked at my schedule. I said, there's no way I'd be able to help because I need to start everything from scratch. But if you have a planner that's already worked at this venue, then it helps a lot. And this was an Airbnb property, right? So there's so much that you got to bring in with the generators, with the bug spray. Like you have like so many little things for a backyard wedding that needs to be considered. So that I think is the second most important thing that you need to be able to find a planner that has worked at the venue that you basically are going to be at, and vendor relationships and vendor connections. That is so important. I have a YouTube channel where I post most of my videos from every wedding that I've done. So it's really helpful. I send them the video, and usually when it's full planning, I ask my couples, because it has all different videographers I work with, so they can see their work and tell me this is the kind of videographer we're looking at. This was one of the reasons I created the YouTube channel. The second was to show my couples how, as a planner, when we do full planning, and this is one of the things that we do, every full planning that I would do, I want to reflect the couple into the event. So the details have to be focused on how a couple's personality is. So for instance, if I have a couple that loves basketball, for example, I'm not going to have basketball as centerpieces. But what I would want to do is when people walk in, there should be a jersey, and instead of a guest book, people sign a jersey, right? Or have their e-shoot photos around a basketball concept. And when people walk into the room, they should totally be like, oh, this is so-and-so, they shouldn't have to look at a picture. They should be able to look at details and be able to connect with the couple that they're here for. So I think that's one of the things that I want every couple to understand, that this is how Saucy puts a signature on every event that they do by reflecting the couple into the event. So yeah, that's
super helpful, and you went into a lot of detail, which is, thank you for that. And I think that's really going to help couples that are planning their weddings, at least give them a good start of how do I start searching and what are the right questions I should ask. Neha, I know we're coming close to the end of our time here together. Can we still spend another 10 minutes or okay, I want to share something with you, and I didn't tell you we were going to do this, but I want to share like an image. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. And this is an image from your Instagram page, and I've just chosen a couple of random ones. And I call this segment one word. If there's one word you could use to describe maybe this picture, I guess you posted this last summer, what would that word be? Breathtaking. I love it. And this was one of my favorite pictures you had on your Insta, so that's why I wanted to ask you, what about this one here? Detail oriented. That's 2 words, we'll take it. But it really does illustrate, like, a planner on the day of your wedding is going to be doing things that you didn't even think about, and this is obviously you just kind of lighting a candle and making sure things are going to look good for the couple, right? What about maybe this one here?
love. I guess that's my family right there.
That's your family right there. And I can't imagine how hard it must be to do what you do with 3 kids. I've got one young one and I find it exhausting, so good for you for obviously killing it. And you brought up Google reviews. How great do you feel? Actually, we'll come back to that in a moment. How about this one here? Team, this is your team here?
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. And finally, how great does it feel to see 5 stars, 59 couples have left you these reviews over the years?
Yeah, no, that is something I'm so proud of. I can't be thankful anymore for this, right? Like, this is something that has really helped my business to sustain for this long because of these Google reviews. So to every couple that's listening, that's taken the time to really write these reviews, I'm so thankful to you. And I make sure that I tell you how thankful I am. And a way that I do that is I'm very well connected with my couples on Instagram. So any milestone they have, any little thing, I always make sure that I kind of comment on it and I let them know that I'm still thinking of them, even if I planned their wedding 10 years ago. So
that's really nice. Awesome. Well, Neha, it was great chatting with you. If somebody's watched this video for the first time and, they've heard what you talk about, they fall in love with you and your style and what you bring to the table, how can they contact you?
So the best way to contact is email, info@saucyplanners.com. That would be the best way. I always tell everyone to please fill out the consult form because that triggers our CRM system and that's the easiest way to get in touch. Now we're also getting DMs as well, just asking for availability. But again, the email is the best way, and filling out the consult form I think would be the best. We do have a studio line and we also have the cell phone. I do have that on the website as well. So feel free to use that. But again, coming down to the consult form, that would be the easiest and the best way to get back to the response.
Amazing. Yeah, and we'll make sure we put up all your information on the video as well. For us to continue like doing this type of segments and continue helping couples, the only way I can do this is keep talking to other really, really good, not good, but great vendors like yourself. So is there maybe 2 people that come to your mind that are like, these are the best people, at what they do that you could introduce me to that would be perfect for this?
Yeah. So are you looking for planners specifically or other?
No, it could be anyone. It could be any vendors in the wedding industry. Is there maybe 2 or 3 that come to your mind that you can think of that I should be speaking to?
So I think my photographer that I work with all the time, we're all about awareness building, and you'll see it on his blog as well, Alphaz Photography Anmol. We've done Insta Lives together. He would be a great fit. Another person that I feel would be a great fit is also from the entertainment industry, and that would be Sahil, our flute player. I think
we had him already. Actually,
you did have
we
him
just
already.
interviewed him. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel like again, I'm kind of focusing on people that are already providing a lot more awareness for a couple. So I think that would be another fit. Who else can I think of that would? There's videographers as well, because I think cinematography and videography are kind of, people are really debating between if we really want to spend a lot of money on photos or videos. And I'm finding it very hard to justify to my couple, especially the generation that's coming around, how important video is. And it's one regret that cannot be fixed, right? Like, you can't go back in time and be like, can I actually hear my dad's speech as to what he said on the day of my wedding? And people are trying to cut corners with videography by finding people that are really inexpensive. But honestly, I've had personal experiences where videographers have even if they've showed up at the wedding, they've disappeared with the video after. People's money has been gone. So if there's anything that you could do to bring awareness of how important it is to not just have video on the day of your wedding, but have the right videographers and the team that are professionals, I think is really important. So in terms of video, Cineverse does a really good job. They're one of our top videographers here. So if you wanted to interview, I think that would be a great fit.
Yeah, and I'll ask you maybe in a few weeks, I'll reach out to you and ask you to connect me to some of these people. That'd be awesome. Okay, well, that's it. And, thank you again, Neha, for sitting down with me and taking time out of your busy day. You've got 3 kids at home, and I know you're swamped. So thank you. And I can't wait to get back out there in the field and be working with you again.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Sergey. Look forward to it as well. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
This is where Lisiane Morris planned to marry her Canadian fiancé, a castle back home in France.
It's a tradition. It just makes it more fancy, more magical.
But the prospect of saying her vows in front of 120 family and friends was stressful. So when the pandemic put a halt on international travel, Morris was actually relieved.
This was a perfect opportunity for us to have an excuse not to do it in a big way.
This was Plan B, a wedding on a local farm in British Columbia with just 4 guests.
I'm really grateful that COVID has opened people's eyes to how incredibly amazing small weddings can be.
In Toronto, the founder of the Pop-Up Chapel Co. says demand for small ceremonies more special than City Hall for less money than a traditional wedding was already growing before COVID, and now it's ramping up even more.
This year, we should marry over 150 couples in our chapels across Canada, and I'm just ready to get the ball rolling and to do events again.
For others, small services have been more of a survival strategy.
Most venues and vendors have come up with new packages that they never had before.
But for an industry hard hit, going from 120-person weddings like this to this means earning far less money on food and drinks.
We're allowing for smaller weddings because it's the only thing that couples have the option to do. But in the future, we do need to see bigger weddings in order for the business to continue.
This wedding planner was supposed to do 47 weddings in 2020. Instead, just 8 small ceremonies went ahead.
Our wedding industry definitely took a really big hit, specifically the South Asian wedding industry, because, we never even heard about the term micro wedding.
She expects large multi-day celebrations to return next year.
All the weddings that we have for 2022 are at least, if not more, 250 people and above.
When all options, big and small, can be on the table. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.